Hey guys, Ken Smith Fishing. I want to talk today about rattlebaits. And I'm going to talk about rattlebaits because they're going to be a player this year on Rayburn. So right now there's 6-7 foot deep grass over a lot of Rayburn. The lake's 2.5 feet low. So if the lake stays at the level it's at now or rises at all, December, January, February, rattlebait's going to make a difference. So let's talk about rattlebaits. I'm going to talk specifically today about 6 cents rattlebaits, and I'm going to do another video behind this talking about all rattlebaits because they all work and they all work under different conditions. But specifically I want to talk about 6 cents because it's confusing because there's a lot of offerings. So I've fished with all of them now, and I'll say I use all of them across different conditions. Most of the time when I go out, if I'm going out for a rattlebait bite, I'm gonna have 6 or 7 different ones rigged up, different colors, different weights, and different sounds and different actions. So let's talk about that real quick. Okay, the original bait that 6 cents came out with was the Snatch. It's a 70 millimeter bait. It's called the 70 Snatch. It weighs 5/8 of an ounce. So that is roughly the size of a 1/2 ounce rattle trap or a 5/8 ounce Yozuri. It has a flat nose on it and a rounded back, so it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more subtle bait. By the way, one of the things I like about all of the 6 cents baits that make a huge difference is big hooks on the back, okay? Most of those other baits, I'll say, have 2s on the back. Excuse me, that's not right. They have 6s on the back. So most other rattle baits, and I use a perfect example, the Yozuri Rattle and Vibe is their bait. It has a 4 on the front and a 6 on the back. And if you put a 4 on the back, because if you're catching big fish, you want as big a hook as you can get away with, it loses a lot of its action. So all 4s on these baits, which I love. So the Snatch is the original bait. Then they came out with the Quake Series. The Quake Series is in a 70 and an 80 millimeter bait. The 70, not the Thud, the Thud's a little bit lighter, but the 70, just traditional Quake bait, is 5/8 ounce. The 80 is 7/8 of an ounce. And then the Thud series, let me make sure I get this right. I know the Thud, I know the 80 non-Thud is 7/8 ounce. I think the Thud is a little bit lighter. So the Thud in the 70, let me get this right, the Thud, so the one knocker if you will, in the 70 is a 1/2 ounce. And in the standard bait, it's a 5/8 ounce because it's got more rattles in it. And then in the 80 series, which is basically the size of everybody else's 3/4 ounce bait, the Thud is 3/4, and the standard bait with the more rattles in it is 7/8 of an ounce. So let's talk about that. So the Thud series is a 1 knocker bait. Okay, it's got 1 lead knocker in it, and I'll give you that sound right here. Okay, so that's that bait. What you're going to notice, and let me show you the shape of it in a different bait. By the way, so a lot of guys say, what colors should I throw? Well, so there are 4 colors designed basically by guys that pretty much fish Rayburn all the time. You got the Collins Crawl, and yeah, most guys think, oh, black bait's for dirty water. You've got the Rambo Red, okay, and then you've got the I think it's called Clayton's Shiner. Looks like a bleeding shiner. I'll show you that bait. I'll show you that a little closer in a second. And then just out, they've got another bait that Albert's come out with that's a chartreusey yellow looking bait. I don't have any of those yet. They are brand new to market. So if I were coming to Rayburn, or even probably Toledo Bend, that's 4 baits 4 colors I would absolutely have to have. The difference in how the baits are shaped, let me show you this. So on a rattle bait, that flat back is what makes that bait rattle back and forth, right? That water falls off the side and it flips it. It falls off the other side, it flips it back. And what you saw, I showed you a second ago in the Snatch, which is a flat nose and a rounded back, what they've done in the Quake series is they're flat on both. So there's flat and then a narrow spot and then flat. This is a much more violent rattle to me than is the Snatch bait. Now again, there are guys who the Snatch is their bait. That's what they're going to throw. They may have a few of the Quakes in there too, but I use both. This is kind of an old standby favorite for some guys. There also, by the way, now is the 80 suspending Quake. That bait weighs 5/8 of an ounce. If you don't have that yet, it may be too late right now. I think they're sold out on that bait. You might check. There might be a few still available on the website. But that bait has sold like crazy everywhere. So you've got, again, oh, and the other difference I didn't tell you. So the other main difference in the Quake bait, so in the Quake bait, now remember, so there's Quake and Quake Thud. The Thud is the one knocker. But in the Quake bait, where the Snatch has 9 steel BBs in it, the Quake bait has a whole different sound to it. It has 5 glass BBs and 2 steel BBs. So you get radically different sounds. 9 steel BBs, steel BBs and glass BBs, and then just a single in the Thud series, a single steel BB. The single bait weighs slightly less in the 70 and the 80. So in the 70, it weighs a ½ ounce and 3/4 of an ounce versus the other baits. So the Snatch 70 weighs 5/8, and then the Quake with all the rattles in it, I don't know how to say it, just the standard Quake bait weighs 5/8 ounce and 7/8 ounce in the 7 or the 8 series. Gosh, I hope that was less confusing than what came out of my head just now. So anyway, that's what you got. You have the original Snatch series, steel BBs, 5/8. You have the 80 series, excuse me, you have
Quake Series,
the regular and the Snatch Thud, multiple rattles, steel and glass, the Thud single rattle. 5/8 ounce in the 70 series that stuck in my hand. And then in the 80 series, you have a 3/4 for the Thud and a 7/8 for the multiple rattle bait. Gosh, hope that made some more sense. Again, there's 4 bait colors that are made by local guys. That would be the Rambo Red, Clayton Shiner, the Collins Crawl, and I don't know what the new one's colored. Let me look at it real quick and I'll tell you the new color. So that's the difference in those baits. You got 70 and 80 millimeter. You got glass and steel, steel or multiple or steel single knocker, and then you got basically a ½ to 5/8 ounce baits and a 3/4, 7/8 ounce baits. If you have more questions about those, shoot me an email and I'll talk to you about them. But again, when I leave the dock on a day that I think there's going to be a lipless bait bite, I'm going to have a whole bunch of them out and a whole bunch of them tied on, because I'll just roll through them. When I go through an area that I feel like there should be a fish, if they don't bite one, I'll pick up the other. I want to be ticking that grass, so I'm going to throw as heavy a bait as I can get away with. I will try to throw the heavier bait. That's just the way I like to do it. I want to tick that deepest grass I possibly can, and I let the grass basically tell me whether it's a 70 or an 80, and then I let the fish tell me the color and the sound they want to have. And let me tell you something, it would not be unusual for me to pull up on a drain or on a point and throw one of them down the middle of it, not get a bite, pick up another one, throw it down the middle of it, and try to figure out exactly what they're wanting to bite. And that changes throughout the day. In a team event, you will hardly ever see us throwing the same bait, especially not the same color. And a lot of times one of us will be throwing a knocker bait and one of us will be throwing a rattle bait, and said another way, a single knocker bait versus multiple BB baits. There you go. I think we're going to have a pretty good rattle bait bite this year. So stock up, and we'll see you guys on the water. Thanks for watching.
guys. As I was wrapping up editing, I realized I had missed a color. So these are the colors developed by the Rayburn locals. Across the top are the Rambo colors. So you've got left to right Rambo Gold, Rambo Chartreuse, and Rambo Red. And then the Albert Collins colors, you've got Collins Yellow on the left, and then the black bait is the Collins Crawl, and then at the bottom is the color Clayton Blueware design, and that is Clayton Shiner. So those are all baits, you know, in addition to your standard, your golds and your silvers that I'd probably make sure I had with me if I came to Rayburn.